Welcome to the XO Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Evans, president of Marriage Today. We have a great show coming to you today. As always, my good friends, my co-hosts, Sean Reed's with me today. Hey, Sean.
What's going on, Brent?
Nothing.
I'm ready to work. Y'all ready? Caitlin, you ready to go?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
Caitlin Edwards is here as well. She's got some great news stories for us. She's keeping us live and in action with some good stuff, right, today?
Current events. I got it.
Good. Hey, we're talking about conflict resolution today. We're about to get in a fight and resolve it right here.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Who's going to start?
Well, I don't know.
It's your fault.
I'm too nice of a guy, okay?
Yeah.
It's all your fault.
No. We know that in marriage, people get into situations sometimes where things get heated.
Yeah.
You have conversations with your spouse that don't go the way you planned them.
Everybody has conflict.
No, absolutely. It's about how we resolve them that matters.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to give you some tips on how to resolve conflict in your marriage. We have a special guest coming up for you. We're gonna dive into this whole topic about how to fight with your spouse, but do it in a way that you come out better lovers, better friends. It's possible. It can happen. We're going to show you how. First off, we're going to talk about date night. We have a special sponsor called Datebox. If you go to getdatebox.com, you'll check out their whole subscription service they have for date nights. They send these boxes to you guys. Do y'all have a subscription service to Datebox?
I need to sign up using our free promo code. All you have to do is pay shipping and handling.
That's right, $5 for shipping and handling. But this is a date box that comes to your house. It's a physical box. They have, last time they had massage oil.
Yeah. A do not disturb sign.
Yes.
It does all the work for you.
Sometimes it's how to cook sushi with your spouse, or sometimes it's about kind of going through different topics or subjects with your spouse. They do all the work for you for your date night. This is once a month. It's very easy. Go to getdatebox.com. Use the promo code XOPodcast, and they'll give you, like Caitlin said, your first month for free. All you have to pay is $5 for the shipping. There's really no excuses not to do it. Check them out at getdatebox.com, and we'll be right back.
Well, I've got some good news for you, and that is you have a 100% chance of success in marriage. A 100% chance.
Couples with the strongest marriages, they aren't the ones that never had a reason to give up. They're the ones who just refuse to give up. God is still in the business of raising dead things and bringing them back to life.
You're not just going to stay married forever. You're going to stay married happily ever after. And that's what we believe when we say that your family has a bright future.
Join Jimmy and Karen Evans for the XO 2018 Marriage Conference. Visit xomarriage.com.
Truth without grace is mean. Grace without truth is meaningless. Truth without grace is surgery without anesthesia. Grace without truth is a cheerleader without a team. It's a bottle with no medicine in it. It's false hope. But grace and truth is powerful. So when we're communicating in marriage, it says, speaking the truth in love, we grow up into all aspects. Our marriages need to have an atmosphere of truth and grace. So relationships without conflict, research has proven, relationships without conflict are not as satisfying as relationships with conflict. I'm not talking about fighting all the time. I'm saying an atmosphere of truth. That I can tell you that I'm hurting, that I can tell you that something's bothering me. We have to have truth in our relationship for it to be satisfying. When relationships where truth is spoken without love are not satisfying because they're devastated. There's hurt feelings. Much of the truth that needs to be spoken in marriage is not Bible truth, it's my truth. It's like I was saying in the previous session, I'm not saying that my feelings are right, I'm just saying that they're real. And so I need the opportunity just simply to speak my truth. And I'll talk about that more in just a minute. But grace has to precede truth. Okay. Research proves this. The first 3 minutes of a conversation dictate the entire conversation. And if a conversation starts bad, you're better to stop, leave for an hour, and come back and start it again, because it starts bad, it's going to end bad. As an example, if you start a conversation like this, let me just tell you something, I'm tired of this and I'm not taking it anymore. And I've got my lawyer's number on speed dial, and depending on what happens in this conversation, I'm going to go hit one button on my phone or not. Now I'm just tired of this. You think that conversation's going to go well? I'm yelling, I'm threatening, I'm name calling and all that kind of stuff, but how about this conversation? Baby, I need to talk. And something's bothering me. I don't know. It might just be me. It might just be the pizza I had last night. I don't know. But if I don't talk about it, it might affect the way that I talk to you today or the way I relate to you today. And I don't want the devil to get involved in this. I love you. I'm committed to you. We're on the same team. I'm yours for the rest of my life. Nothing's ever going to change that. But I just want to tell you how I'm feeling. You think that conversation's going to go good? Because grace preceded truth. Did you know every time that grace and truth are mentioned in the Bible, grace is always mentioned first? It doesn't say that Jesus was full of truth and grace. It says that Jesus was full of grace and truth.
We are going to talk about what's going on in the news as it relates to marriage. And first up, we're going to talk about a book by Eli Finkel. This guy's a psychologist, and he has a book called The All or Nothing Marriage, and he's taken all of his years of experience, along with his personal experience in marriage with his wife over all of the years, and has drawn this conclusion about expectations in marriage. So he argues that high expectations for your marriage and for your life in general greatly benefit a couple when things are going really well in life and in marriage, but severely are counterproductive when you're going through hard times. So essentially what he's saying is that if you go into marriage expecting the absolute best, thinking everything's going to be perfect and lovely and wonderful all the time, and believing that about your life as well, that you're going to be really happy when life's treating you kindly and things are good, but that you're going to be 2 times as unhappy when things get hard. So his suggestion is that you, in times of hardship, lower your expectations a little bit, ride the wave, and by, I guess, the converse effect of lowering your expectations makes you happier and helps sustain your relationship long term. Sean, do you think that expectations play a part in whether or not a relationship lasts?
Yes, absolutely. I think that our expectations a lot of times are based on our perceived need at that moment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the challenges that happen with husbands and wives is we have either voiced it in the past and we're disappointed that our spouse is not rising to the level of what we need at that moment, or we assume that they get life in the way the world revolves around us the same way that we do. So we anticipate. We're looking forward to our spouse coming through and doing for us or the family or the household or what have you in a manner that I would do it. And since they don't, it's like hurt. And in a lot of ways, a person can feel betrayed or they can feel overlooked, undervalued because that spouse continues to miss the mark. I mean, and after a while, just a failure to execute on a level that a person has perceived as the expectation. This is the way it should be. I mean, they can really view it as like, almost like a sinful act against them. Right. And after a while, a person just keeps just kind of violating the law over and over and over again. And your feelings for that person could all of a sudden begin to change because you begin to think that they're doing it intentionally.
Well, how do you practically lower your expectations without becoming negative or just expecting life to be hard or expecting marriage to be hard or the world to be cruel? How do you practically lower your expectations in a healthy way?
I think it's just being realistic. You know, I read something today about how couples, when they go see a romantic movie, like a really romantic movie where the guy is like super in love with the girl and wins her over and it's just high romance, that actually couples walk away frustrated. Like it lowers intimacy in relationship because you see this couple on screen having this amazing love fest
and you can't relate,
and you walk away going, I'll never achieve that. As opposed to going to see a horror movie or something that goes like really south in the movie, you walk away going, well, my life's not that bad. So you feel a little bit better about your life and your marriage. And so I think being realistic about who you're married to and where you're married and what city you live in and what job you have, it's always good to want to achieve a better status in life, you know, maybe make a little bit more money or have a better job. But I think setting expectations that your spouse is going to be beautiful forever, the same way they looked like when they're 20s, they look like in their 70s. There's an expectation on our culture to keep up with all this kind of stuff. I think that's part of it. I think to make a lot of money, there's an expectation on people to like just grow their 401k and always have all this money. I think that's unfair if you have too high of an expectation on where you're supposed to be at the end of your life. I think sometimes couples over time, their expectations change and they don't keep up with each other and they don't communicate. That's why we talk about having vision retreats every year. It does help you to kind of know what your expectations are every year. to align those with your spouse. So whenever things go south and you have high expectations, which it will, you're going to have peaks and valleys. You're
Absolutely.
never going to live on the top of the mountain every year.
Right.
When you get to the valley and you go, this isn't what I thought was going to happen, it's very easy for conflict to arise in a marriage.
Yeah.
Well, I would challenge a person at that valley moment of like to stop for a moment and remember like some of the best times that you've had with your spouse, and remember that you're like in love with them and not just what they can do for you.
Right.
And so if a person's not, rising to that level financially or with their parents or all the many things that you name, it's like what grounds you is the fact that you are there to actually serve that person. And you're in love with the person and not just what they can do for you. And that helps you to kind of lower those expectations and saying, okay, it's not just about how you're serving me, but right now in this moment, how can I readily serve you?
Right.
And it's kind of having the gift of giving, being on the right side of giving. A friend of mine once told me, a lot of times we want to be the recipients of people's goodness, but we forget that we've been taught that it's better to give than to receive. So how can I be a giver in the valley? How can I be a giver on the mountaintop and try to bring some joy into somebody else's life instead of being so disappointed with what they're not bringing into mine?
That's good. Next up, we have an article from NBC News, and this is actually about our good friends, Casey and Megan Caston. They've been a part of our EXO conferences before. We love them. And NBC posted this, and it's the Caston's advice about 5 easy steps to fighting fair and to gaining a better marriage. They say it's as easy as 5 steps, and those steps are to 1, maintain control, keep your cool, never letting the argument rise to a heated level. 2nd, never interrupt. It's funny, this article mentions that Megan and Casey hold a toy microphone when it's their turn to talk, and it just ensures that whoever is speaking gets heard and says what they need to say, and they kind of pass it off, which I thought was interesting. 3rd, do not bring up the past. You have to deal with one issue at a time. Maybe we need to do that here.
I would typically teach people not to have something where you can bludgeon the other person with it.
Right, it's lightweight. It's a foam microphone.
Oh, okay. Those sharp objects.
3s, don't bring up the past. You have to deal with one issue at a time. 4, don't be critical, talking about how that just derails the productivity of the argument. It becomes not constructive at that point. And 5th, to apologize, that there's something about taking responsibility that just takes the air out of the argument. And I thought that was good advice.
They have great advice. Yeah, Casey and Megan are great.
Yeah, you know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Probably about the first 5 years of our marriage, I flunked the first one. And I never did make it down to the rest of them.
It affects everything. It sets the tone for the whole conversation.
Yeah, I was always angry. I was like the Incredible Hulk.
I think for guys, it's hard to remember the steps. Because once your blood pressure gets high and you're just seeing red, it's like, what do I do now? Because the fight or flight mode is you're either going to just let them have it with your mouth, or you're going to want to go hightail it somewhere.
Right. And that's why they were saying no one to even say, I just need to take a step back for a moment. Just give me a moment to kind of get to a better place. And we can start from there.
It's good.
It's good advice today.
Imagine a relaxing, adventurous cruise among glaciers, mountains, and charming fishing villages, combined with life-changing marriage teaching from Jimmy Evans. Set sail June 29th to July 6th, 2018 on the EXO Marriage Cruise to Alaska. Unforgettable views, luxurious accommodations, and 8 days of romance in one of the most scenic parts of North America. Book your stateroom now at exomarriage.com/cruise.
Welcome back to the EXO podcast. We're talking about the worst. The worst! We're talking about the worst of things. And today we're talking about the worst pickup lines that you can use. Now, if you're married, you've already used as many pickup lines as you probably want. But they still kind of work on your spouse.
Absolutely.
You can still use them to make them laugh. Or if you're maybe looking for a romantic night, you can use them for those as well.
Yeah, we got some good ones.
So first up, hey girl. It's handy that I have my library card because I'm totally checking you out.
Fail.
Yes, major fail. All right, this is only if you're married you can say this one. But your breasts remind me of Mount Rushmore. My face should be among them. Shouting like this one. Hey girl, did you just fart? Because you blow me away.
A pickup line should always start with a bodily function accusation.
Yeah, I love it.
I liked the, hey girl, are you German? Because I want to be German.
It's so bad.
English hits me.
If you were a transformer, you'd be Optimus Prime.
It works. I like it. Hey, listen, these lines, I want y'all all to try these with Lynette tonight.
Okay.
You pick one of these and you just give it a try tonight and see what happens.
I'm gonna give it a shot. We'll see. I don't think it's gonna go well. I'm willing to try though.
You will? Will you try this one? Excuse me, girl. I think you have something in your eye. Nope, it's just a sparkle.
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't work. If you told her, hey, Lynette, is your name Wi-Fi? Because we have a connection.
That was nice.
That's a sweet one.
That was.
The world.
Welcome back to the XO Podcast. We have a special guest in the XO studio with us today. Her name is Teresa Thomas. A little background on Teresa. She has been a successful businesswoman. She started a company, built it up, sold it, and then after that, she decided to go out into marriage and family therapy.
Marriage and family.
And she's been helping couples succeed in their relationships for many, many years. And then just recently, she joined the MarriageToday team as the leader of Operation Hope. Welcome,
Yes.
Teresa.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Awesome.
And we know that you see a lot of couples in your counseling room.
Yes.
And you help them, you coach them, you teach them how to have a better marriage. So we're talking about conflict in marriage today. And we're going to be talking about how to resolve conflict. And we know it's going to happen. We know we're going to have
Absolutely.
situations where we go head to head with our partners.
Yes.
But we want to know how to resolve that
Okay.
as peacefully as possible.
Okay.
With as little violence and damage
Sure.
as possible. Because what I do know is that there is a process that happens, and once you fight, you actually, on the backside of it, can sometimes have a reward.
That's the
It's called
truth.
makeup sex, Sean.
Indeed. And it is
That's
good
the
for
upside.
your
That is a thing.
That's
That
the
is
upside. That's right.
No, but we want to get people to a place where they can understand that conflict is normal, how to deal with it,
Sure.
and bring it to a place where they know when they get in those heated situations, kind of like it's a discipline, they know that there's some things they can do. So, Teresa, welcome to the podcast.
Well, I'm excited to be here and love this subject. It's one of my favorite when couples come in because obviously when couples come to the office, it doesn't matter what age they are, they just feel like they should know better. Yeah. And I try to help them understand after 32 years of marriage and 25 years of marriage counseling, my husband and I had to admit there were areas in our marriage that we were infants. Yeah. And conflict resolution was one of them. I should know better because I know this stuff, but still you could get in those situations where you just... You escalate and then you disengage and then there's all these hurt feelings. And so I just try to help couples, number one, understand there's areas you're infants and conflict resolution is one of those. Mm-hmm. And when you can admit that you're an infant in a subject, then you know there's a learning curve. Yeah. And so I try to keep it really simple. When you start to escalate, stop. Just stop. Because fact fighting is what happens when you're escalating. Mm-hmm. And we know that fact fighting leads to failure. So if you know that, if the knowledge is if we're in an escalation mode and we're fact fighting, this is going to go nowhere. It's just going to be a failure for us. So stop. That's the first thing. And then, you got to retreat to your own quiet place, a place that you can actually get a proper perspective about what's going on here. Yeah.
But everybody has a different opinion about how long that retreat should last. When we first got married, Stephanie and I, we'd have a fight, and like she could last days. I was within a couple hours. I was like, "Come on, let's just resolve this. Let's get back to a place." And she was that's just the way she fights. She could get to a place where she didn't really have to talk to me. Yeah. She was retreating in her own place, and we have since resolved that.
Okay.
We've gotten better now. We know like there's a certain period of time. I give her space. I gave her enough time to cool down, but then we have a peaceable time where we come. We've been married almost 20 years.
Yes.
That was our first couple of years of marriage. So we've learned over the years the right balance. But what do you tell couples?
Well, I tell couples there's a difference between withdrawing and taking time out from each other, and the difference is giving the time in, knowing I'm going to need about 30 minutes. I'm going to need until tomorrow. And maybe if it's a big one, we need a couple of days, but we don't go longer than that, only because we want to be able to, like you said, have some resolution, have a win-win. And so there's specific things that we tell couples to do during that time out. You got to know 3 things before you're ready to have another conversation, because that's the adult part. That's growing up in that area. Because we don't want to get into fact fighting. We want to trade personalization and accusations for ownership and understanding. And the only way we get there is to know 3 things before we come back together. We got to know what we're feeling. We got to know what we're believing, and we got to own what we did. And so, for instance, if a couple came in not too long ago, and the wife was super frustrated that the husband spent so much time at the office. And so her 3 things were, I feel unimportant, I feel lonely because I feel like your career is more important than me and our family. And I own that I don't make the environment warm for you to come home to. The husband, on the flip side, his feeling was, I feel misunderstood and I feel unappreciated because I spend all this time at the office trying to make a living so that we can live the life that we live. Right. And I own that I don't want to come home because I don't want to go from one stressful environment to the other. So what you do is you take the defensiveness down a notch because each of you are owning your stuff. You're owning what you're feeling, you're owning what you're believing, and you're owning what you've done.
That sounds like grown-ups.
It does sound like grown-ups.
Sounds like mature adults.
So that's the adult-to-adult switch from
it.
being an infant in an area to growing up in that area.
Why do people have such a hard time being mature in relationships? I mean, because we resort to our most juvenile behavior.
Yes.
Whenever we're in our even 30s, 40s, and we just act like little children fighting.
Well, we have the need to be right. And we just want to be able to get you to convince you that what I'm telling you is the way we should get this done.
Yeah, so we're fighting these little skirmishes, these battles, and losing the war.
Yes.
Right? And so the war should be to keep it together, to stay unified, but instead we're kind of nitpicking and trying to win every argument, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now that you've done this and you've had some couples who've kind of gone through it, what do you think are some of the biggest hindrances for those that still struggle in that area? Right. So after you kind of laid out the blueprint, we said, hey, these are the steps. You need to take ownership and so on and so forth. What are some of the things that you feel prevent them from kind of taking that next step?
Well, people are creatures of habit. And so they want to go back to doing it the way they've been doing it. They don't want to learn a new way, even though they know it's successful. Even though we can say to them, more of the same is not going to bring change. They still go back. They still go back to what they're habitually used to doing, even though they know it doesn't work. And that's the infant part of it. That's the growing up in that area, saying, I no longer want to do it this way because I know it's not healthy for my marriage. And it's just people making that decision to do that. Wow. And it's the challenge all the time. And we literally send them with the script with those 3 things. Know your 3 things.
Yeah. And so at some point there has to be like a surrendering to this new process, this new way. I'll tell you what. For the first 5 or 6 years, my wife and I, we struggled in this area. And of course, every now and then we still do. We still have our moments where there's a little bit of tension that exists. Part of it is I have a need to be right. Yes. I have a very, very strong need to be right. And I like to win arguments as well. So I have this habit of wanting to win the argument, and I have a need to be right. And for a long time, she would suppress what she was thinking. She's been set free now. And so she talks about what she's thinking now. Yeah, so she's free. But prior to that, she really couldn't get a word in because I was so angry and I was so okay. So there are a lot of people in listener land who may be at that place to where they have a lot to say, or they're processing their emotions and they're thinking through it, but they don't really voice what's on their hearts. They don't really express what's really going on in their minds, and they're about to implode. What would you say to a person like that?
The people who are not sharing?
Yes, like my wife was. My wife was at that place. I was so intense.
Okay.
And argumentative and defensive. And so even if she would bring up anything, it would lead to this big explosion. Exactly. And I would even dominate the explosion.
Sure.
And so I was quite controlling. And so she suppressed a lot. And she just kind of held it in. And so for a person like herself, what would you suggest? Sticking
to the script. Why? Because, again, we know that works. We know it works with couples who have gotten into a place, like you said, where there's a dominant one, because it's, again, getting into fact fighting. Mm-hmm. Whoever has the better facts, whoever stays in the game longer is going to be a winner. And so there's a winner and a loser, and anytime there's a winner and a loser in the marriage, we all lose.
Wow.
So for Lynette, again, sticking to the script, she could say to you, we're going to stop right now, or she could say, I'm feeling attacked, because I believe all this is about is you winning, and I own that I'm no longer going to have this argument with you, and then it's over. So those are her 3 things.
Wow, that is powerful stuff, buddy. Because that changes the whole dynamic of where it heads. So instead of going tit for tat,
yes,
a person is now walking in an authority to basically control themselves, and so they don't have to allow the other person to control them or determine, where the conversation is going to go.
Yes,
but they can own their part of the conversation, and that's powerful.
And it only takes one of you to be an adult, because the other person then can't dance the same. If the one person decides, I'm going to continue to grow up in this area for us, for our health of our marriage.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take both of you to have to do it either.
It's really good.
It's really good. Let's talk about nuclear issues.
Okay.
Because I know in most relationships, there's one thing that if you push that button, the missiles come up, they start aligning. There's always one topic that people have in their marriage that if maybe it's in-laws, maybe it's finances, maybe it's kids, maybe it's something like that. So when you get to a level of a fight or a conversation argument that that is going to cause major catastrophe if you push the button and start down that path, how do you get people to, first of all, put the missiles down, take their finger off the button, and kind of on the backside of it, really take it off the table for the future? Resolve that issue long term, because I feel like most people just live with it, and they never really address it, and they never really have deep intimacy because they never resolve that one issue in their marriage. They may have a good marriage, but they never have a great marriage because
they avoid it. Yeah, definitely.
Do you see that a lot?
We do, and intimacy, bringing up that subject, it has a lot to do with the intimacy, the lack of emotional intimacy, because even though you can have a good relationship and, we've got good jobs and good kids and we're living the life, there's that lack of the need, there's that need to want to go deeper, but you don't, because when you've tried it in the past, like you said, it's nuclear. There's something that's missing in their ability to be able to communicate that on a healthy level. And so for us, we teach them that, again, the 3 tools about being able to keep it on a level that it's about my heart. It's not so much about cognitively the facts. So if it's about, say, for instance, there's a problem in the bedroom, that's a big one, obviously, and we get that a lot, and we just try to help each other understand what it is that you believe about intimacy. If you're able to share, I feel this way when I'm with you because I believe this, and I own that I act like a certain way, it again sets the stage for safety and security that says, I'm going to own what I've been doing in the bedroom. Yeah. But also, I need you to understand my heart in this issue. It's not about the facts. It's not about what society says about what it's supposed to look like. It's not about any of that. It's the real me showing up naked and being able to say to you, this is my heart in this. Yeah. For husbands, they want, and I won't say all husbands, but a lot of it is the male wanting that physical touch. And then a woman being able to say, I want that for you. I really want that for you. And here's what I need. I need the emotional intimacy, and that's what's missing for us. And that's why you're not getting what you want, and I'm not getting what I want. Yeah. But we got to be able to go deeper and have that conversation in a safe environment.
The thought I had about conflict was this: when God created Adam and Eve, it's unique. A lot of times when we think of the creation story, we think about it physically, that Adam was like this clay ball and God breathed life into him, and then Eve was taken from his literal rib. But the translation of it is I guess there's a deeper meaning to that, that she was taken from his side. One translation said a woman was made opposite from man. So the idea is his helper and her helper, they're helpers of one another, but they're made opposite from one another. And so that means that we're created to be different on purpose.
Yes.
And so the way that a man thinks, the way that a woman thinks by nature is opposite. And those opposites usually should help us become attracted to one another, but sometimes it can, if not worked through properly, it'll cause us to want to divide from what's best for us. So you mentioned something earlier that our hearts are the key. And since we communicate from heart to heart, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So we communicate from heart to heart, my heart to yours, but it has to go through my mouth. And whatever comes back out of your mouth is going to come back to me and impact my heart. The challenge that I find, which I think your conversation piece that you're telling us to have these 3 steps, it helps to eliminate this one tragic mistake, is that my heart is misinterpreted because my words misrepresented.
Very good.
If my attitude is one of anger and so great a frustration that now my heart, it basically has no filter. There's no mercy with the truth. So I can be saying the right things, the facts, but the wrong way. And that's going to continue to stir it up more and more and more. And so what I'm realizing in how we have these conversations, as you're explaining it, is it's taking my heart and it's putting a filter over it. And it's making sure that we actually solve the real problem rather than battling with how I bring up the problem, my response to what you're saying is the issue, and so on and so forth. And so I feel like that is a huge I guess area that we all need to grow in, right?
Absolutely.
It's getting freed up in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
Okay. So what would you say to a person who's right now, they're at this spot where they're in the thick of it? I mean, it's just really difficult. In the house, it seems like they are at that nuclear point. It's really, really, really hostile. And let's say they can't get to you guys yet.
Yes.
They don't, and they just feel like they're at that breaking point. What can they do immediately in their home right now to help them cope with such a toxic environment?
Again, trying to take the facts off the table, like that's what we get into when we're trying to have a conversation and sharing our heart. We start getting into facts. And so, I encourage couples, whenever they get in those heated situations, is to stop.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to take that time to retreat, to know your three things.
So you want them to pause. So just the power of the pause, right? So pause for a moment before you get ready to do something. I say, take a walk before you talk and pray before you say.
Oh, I love that. Right? Yeah.
And so,
I'm going to take that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love it.
Take a walk before you talk and pray before you say. So before this comes
sure.
out, you may want to ask yourself, will this help or will this hurt? You know, if the way I'm going to say it is wrong, you know, will it help or will it hurt? So if a person is in worship, and I know you know how to worship and pray, so I'm gonna dive into this now with you. And I'm gonna say, okay, let's say, for instance, you're bringing something before God regarding your spouse or any conflict or what have you. How would you approach that? Help me out. Like, I'm at a place where I want to lean in on the Lord and help me to get my words right before I go into this meeting. What should I be, focused in on in prayer and in worship?
During the prayer, I want to make sure I'm at
yes.
Okay.
So
all right.
During the prayer, so I'm getting prepared. We just had a conflict, or I feel like I need to have a conversation with my spouse, but just to make sure that we approach this thing the right way, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna pray before I say this thing.
Yes.
What should a person do in that time of prayer?
Well, I think for me personally, I'm praying that the Lord will show me my husband's heart, that he would be able to, I want to radiate a certain aspect of Christ when it comes to certain subjects in my marriage, but I can start taking things personally. And so I'm always praying, Lord, don't let me take this personal. I know this is not about me. I know that there's something going on with my husband, and I want to have ears to hear, and I want to have a heart of grace and mercy to be able to understand what it is that he's frustrated about. So actually taking it off of you and asking the Lord to help you see the heart of your spouse.
That's great.
Yeah, people that grow up learning from their parents how to resolve conflict a lot of times, and that's harder for them to overcome than anything.
Absolutely.
And so one of the reasons why we love doing this is to bring some education to people, change their normal.
Yes.
Like my dad and mom always talked about, my dad's family, they didn't talk when they were mad at you, you knew because they didn't talk.
Exactly.
My mom's side of the family, they just blew up. It was a volcano whenever there was a fight, and then 10 minutes later they were great. Just go eat something.
Yeah, they're done. Yeah.
But you just got overloaded with a bunch of yelling and everything.
Exactly.
And so that's how they came into the marriage, and I can relate with that. My parents obviously modeled something really well for me in growing up. It helps to have Jimmy and Karen Evans as parents when it comes to marriage. I can't throw them under the bus.
Lucky you.
But you do bring things in there. I mean, personality and everything like that. And so I feel like with the information you're giving our listeners, that they can apply those things right now. They can have something that they can take away. And I love the part about the facts and taking those off the table. People get so locked in to the he said, she said, this happened, you did this, and they cannot see past it.
No.
They cannot see. They are willing to give up everything over the most minute detail.
That's so true, Brent.
And so just to take that off the table, what's it going to hurt just to take it off the table and
Exactly.
just not make it about that thing? I feel like it's huge for most people.
Yeah, and the other thing that we share with couples is keep fun time sacred. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're on a date, because, I mean, the world we live in and busy, the fact that you're even on a date is a miracle in itself. We really encourage couples not to have conflicts during fun time. Hold that. Whatever's happened, say, we'll get to that later. Right now, we're going to enjoy our dinner. We're going to enjoy, our walk in the park or whatever that is. That is another key one that I because you're making memories during those times. And that's the last thing you want to do is get in conflict during the fun times.
It's good. Great. Teresa, thank you for being a part of the podcast
I appreciate
today.
you having me. I enjoyed it, guys. I really did. It was awesome.
Great advice.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
And in fact, my wife and I got a little argument today, and I can go home and I can say it's not about the facts that you did this.
It's all about your heart, honey. That's right.
It's not about the fact that you did this.
No, it's very, very good. So if you want more information on Teresa, she's actually leading our Operation Hope. You can go to MarriageToday.com and look for the Operation Hope page. It's under our Marriage Help section, and they have Operation Hope here every week in our office where they're helping coach couples and lead them to a better place.
Awesome.
Check her out there. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, my good friend.
Appreciate you, brother. This is great.
Any other comments about conflict resolution?
No, I think that's it. I got homework.
That's
I took some notes from you, so I'm gonna jot it down and apply it.
Yeah, it was really good. All right, well, thanks again to our sponsors, Datebox. Go to getdatebox.com, use the promo code XOPodcast, and also our podcast page on our site, xomarriage.com/podcast. We're going to be populating that with all of our links. But please subscribe to the feed. Tell your friends about this podcast. It's an easy way. If you have friends that are hurting their marriage, it's an easy way to help them. Just get something that might bless their marriage, help them to get to a better place. Hope you do that. Please follow us on our social media. We love you guys. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and we'll see you next time.